We left off when Kid jumped out of the tree to engage the other Vanser and his group, and the rest, when Kita first engaged, that's when everybody in the grove, not everybody, some people stayed to help defend, and everybody else went into the cave. While Akeada and a few others engaged. There's not too many, because there's only 4 swords. Akeada's using 2 of them, and a few others are just using makeshift weapons. Rocks tying to sticks, hatchets, hammers, spears. Pretty much what they're using. A bunch of makeshift weapons. Is everybody ready? Everybody ready? Alright, the pin when I start. I can go back and clip it a lot easier. Immortals. Alright, I guess we'll just go ahead and start. Manny, sleep. Hey. So, when Akeada jumped out of the tree to engage, again, everybody went to the cave, like I just said. And the Vanser, again, is using a claymore, a metalwork claymore. They are a little bit more progressed, of course, because that's where the Grove got their 4 swords for taking it from their tribe. So, as Akeada jumped out of the tree, they engage. His sword he was dual wielding. They met, their swords met, made an impact because Akeada jumped out of the top of the world tree and left a little impact mark on the ground. Not really a little impact, it left a pretty big impact. Not a huge one, just you get the idea. Anyways, so the other Vanser pretty much swung his sword to get Akeada back. Akeada flew back and landed on his feet. Flew back, landed on his feet, and got into just a stance, one sword in front of the other. He still doesn't really know what he's doing with them. So he says he's just in a regular stance. I was trying to think of how to explain it. I need a pin. Trying to think of how to explain it. Just kind of both of them in front. He doesn't really have a stance, so he just has them pointing at the guy. His platoon that he brought with not Akeada, the other Vanser, started spreading out to go around Akeada because they know they're not really a match for him. While the other Vanser engage. While the Vanser's engaged, the platoon is gonna go around and try flanking. Some are gonna try helping Akeada. The Grove tribe. I'm getting mixed up. Terrible telling stories. I know, guys. This is not a great A. So, as the other Vanser's platoon start spreading out to circle the tree, because they don't know that they evacuated into the cave system. In this case, it's now the mines. But they don't know that, so they circle the tree. Someone was still getting stuck in some traps. But they're starting to be more and more cautious, so they're not falling into traps anymore. As they circle, Akeada and the other Vanser are starting to inch their way closer and closer. About to square off again. As his platoon are hiding in the tree, the world tree, waiting for some to come in. But the other Vansers hasn't made it to the tree just yet. They're still circling it. And they're going to start enclosing. And yes, I'm pretty sure you guys can tell I'm still a little tired. My storytelling is suffering of it. I know. Well, anyways, back to it. He charges forward. The other Vanser raises his sword to go keep going. Doing good? I'm doing pretty poor. The other Vanser raises his sword to do an overhead swing. Akeada's still rushing forward. Crosses the swords in front of him to block the attack on the other guy. The other Vanser swings downwards, but with such force that it actually pushes the sword, Akeada's swords, downwards, and it gets a good slash across Akeada's chest. Akeada jumps back, and he immediately starts healing, of course. He puts his hand to his chest as he backs off a bit. But as he's backing off, the other Vanser presses forward, raising his sword up again. When he goes to swing down this time, Akeada jumps back, and its sword barely nicks him, so it's not a full scratch. It just scratches the biocrystal chest piece he has while he's healing up still. But the other Vanser reared back up, just got into his stance again. He just sat back while he healed up a little bit. And then he went back in after he's healed. Remember guys, his biocrystal gets a little bit stronger each time it cracks. So it's getting stronger and stronger, and it's not just his chest piece, it affects his entire biocrystal network that he has, like the inside of his bones, or inside the thick root that he has, is covered in biocrystal as well. It has like a layer of biocrystal. His claws, his armbands, his mask, his shin guards, it's just like all the biocrystal plate that he has is again being hardened. Think about it like he is a exoskeleton and a skeleton. He is both. That's a good way to think about it for the biocrystal, because he generates it. Anyways, that's a different story. Anyways, so the other guy raises up his sword again to do an overhead swing again. Akeada is expecting his time as he's going forward. So when he swipes, when the other Vanser brings the sword down, like does the chop, Akeada turns to the side and he goes in to swing as well, but the other Vanser stops it mid-swing, or stops it and then turns it, getting Akeada in the gut. Ends up swiping Akeada. Akeada jumps back, so it's not as hard of a blow. It gets a good gash on his stomach. He doesn't have any biocrystal on his stomach, so it was a good cleave to his gut. So he jumps back. He immediately starts healing again, because it's just his healing factor that he has. The other Vanser gets back into his stance. knowing that he has the upper hand. He's pretty much fighting a rookie. Meanwhile, his squad is inching closer and closer to the Great Tree. They're finding the traps. As they go, so they're not falling into it as much. Some are still falling into it, but some are not. Because it's not all pitfalls, there's some spring traps that they have. That are held together and pretty much just snap for us. They're not as deadly as the pitfalls. Just there to injure. But that's that. Is Akeada the only Vanser that can heal? No, all of them have a healing factor. Akeada is just a reverse burn. So Akeada backed off from the other Vanser. The other Vanser put his sword to his side, looking dead ahead into his stance. Akeada holding his gut as he jumps back a little bit. Waits for him to heal up. Waits to heal up a little bit before he engages again. He's still learning and pretty much adjusting as he fights. As a Vanser, he learns quick in battle. So he's just studying his opponent. But as the other Vanser is the exact same, he's also studying Akeada and what he's doing. He's having a harder time studying Akeada because he doesn't have a actual style, not very knowledge of fighting because he's still young, not much experience. So Akeada's being a lot more cautious than aggressive. And due to its unknown, the other Vanser is also being cautious and not too aggressive. Akeada gets back into his stance, but putting one sword to the side and one in front. So his left hand is in front holding a sword straight up, and he has the right sword off to the side. He starts running forward, charging the other Vanser. The other Vanser raises his arms up to point the sword forward. He thrusts it when Akeada is approaching. Akeada uses his other sword to push it to the side, and he uses his right hand to swipe at the other Vanser's head. The other Vanser ducks down, dodging it, sidestepping, lowering his sword and going up for a swipe. Akeada guards with both swords, pushing it off to the side. I lost my train of thought. As the other Vanser stumbles forward after the weight of his own swing, he goes for a swipe. Barely cuts into the other Vanser. The other Vanser sidesteps again, bringing his sword up and bringing it back down for an overhead swing. So to clarify, he spun his sword up and he was bringing it back down. He was ready for this time. Instead of guarding it with it like this to catch the sword in the center, he put them both on the sides, so he slides them down, and then he goes up for after parrying the claymore. He goes for the head with his left hand, while using his right hand to guard for the claymore. The other Vanser kind of slides on his knees. He goes forward and sliding on his knees to evade the head swipe. Akeada raises his right hand to bring it down as the other Vanser slides. The other Vancer raises his hilt held up to guard with the cross guard that's on his claymore. Blocks that. Blocks that and stands back up. It comes back around with his left sword. Turn this down. It comes back around with his left hand. And he still has the sword kind of upside down. He guards with the blade. Spinning his blade around and going in for a slash on the chest. Akeada still using his right sword for more of a shield now instead of using it for an attack. Uses it to catch the sword and parry it off to the side as he steps back. As the sword gets parried, the other Vancer steps forward, spinning, using the momentum for a large or a powerful, like a mid slash. He uses both swords to block, but it pushes Akeada back, sliding on the ground a little bit. Acres, what's up? Oof, we got a lot this time. Can we get some tanks on the field, guys? Say we get some tanks on the field? He gets back in his stance, but this time he turns his right sword. He turns it around, so now he's holding it up backwards. Using it more for defense than he is offense. So he pretty much holds it backwards. He's going to use his arm for more strength for defense. This is what he's going to attempt to do. And with that thought in mind, sorry to bore you. Sorry to bore you, Skits. I'm trying. He charges forward with his right sword, or with his right hand forward in the reverse blade. Charges forward. The other Vancer raises his sword up. Raises his sword up and comes down for a powerful. Raises his sword up, steps forward, and brings the sword down with full force. Akeada just using one sword at an angle, tries to block it, but the other Vancer is starting to be more aggressive. He puts more force into it, and as it connects, it breaks through the other sword, cutting into Akeada's arm. He pushes away because it cuts into the biocrystal armor, cuts into his arm, and gets stuck on the biocrystal tough root. He still pushes it away and goes in with the left sword. He ends up impaling, just stabbing into the other Vancer, and then kicks back. Stabs him in his left side, and then kicks off of him with his right foot, pushing back. The other Vancer stumbled backwards while Akeada jumped back with his arm now healing and almost cut through. It cut halfway through his arm, getting stuck on his tough root. He now only has a short little knife in his right hand now. He looks at both of them and he swaps hands. He swaps his left sword and his right sword, so he has the short, like little dagger, broken sword in his left hand, and the long sword in the right hand. The other Vancer steps back. And Akeada is just watching him. He watches to see how... He just watches to see how his reaction is. And the other Vancer is holding his wounds. And it's just... he thinks it's bleeding. But actually it's not necessarily bleeding. It then bursts into flames. And now his right side, his left side, was it left or right? Anyway, his side starts burning as Akeada was charging forward, and Akeada stops in his tracks. And the other Vanser puts his hand back on his sword, with his side now kind of on flames. I was watching Clyde. And that's his healing factor. Akeada's is a reverse burn, his is a burn. So his flesh pretty much sears itself closed. And of course the other Vanser feels this. And there's nothing he can really do about it. Akeada continues to go forward after the burning stops. Continues to run forward. Now with a long sword and a short sword. Because the other one pretty much broke. We all know this. Anyways. The other guy, standing in his normal stance with his sword slightly forward, pulls it back again for a thrust. Thrusts it forward. Akeada slides on his knees this time, going for the other Vanser's legs. But as Akeada slides, the other Vanser goes in for the thrust. Wow, the slide. When the other Vanser goes for the thrust, just like what he did earlier, Akeada is now doing the exact same thing. He slides on his knees into the side of one of the sides of the Vanser and slashes at his knees. He ends up cutting one of his legs, and the other Vanser falls to his knee. Akeada stands back up behind him, going in for another stab, but on like the back of his head, just going straight for the head. The other Vanser on his knees looks back, looks down, and then just bursts entirely into flames. Akeada jumps back, slightly burning his hand. And now the other guy is just completely on fire. If you haven't noticed, his magic is fire now. It's tied with his healing. So the other guy's power is flames. He has flames in him, so when he gets cut, it kind of gets out and it sears his flesh to heal it. The other Vanser stands up, now taking the fight more seriously. Because as it goes on, he noticed that Akeada is learning at an alarming rate, so he's using his magic to end it. Unfortunately, as he uses it, it's also burning him, so he doesn't want to keep it for too long. So he extinguishes his own flames and ignites his sword on fire. Now he has the flaming claymore. Akeada gets back into his stance with his right sword forward, holding the short sword backwards. The other Vanser digs his feet in and charges forward. Akeada braces. Akeada braces, waiting for the attack. He brings up the pretty much almost does a cross guard. Oh, the short sword behind the long sword. Yeah, it goes forward, jumps forward, pretty much doing a leap, leaps and comes down with an overhead swing. Akeada knowing not to just full on block it, silently steps to the side, angling his sword so it slides off rather than just a complete block. The other Vanser makes contact, sliding down, hitting the ground, setting the tall grass ablaze. And as it hits the ground, he changes its direction, swiping back at Akeada. Akeada ready for this time. He jumps up and it goes under him while Akeada's in the air. So he jumps over the attack. The other guy continues to swing. So doing a full circle and then raising the sword up, doing an upsweep while Akeada's still in the air. Akeada, having no choice, does a full guard and takes the hit. His full guard was broken, pretty much doing a cross slap. Doing a cross guard again with the swords. The short sword took most of the hit because he put it in front of the long sword. It broke the short sword and Akeada got slightly burned as he fell back. Flies back. So anyways, Akeada fell back, patting the fires that were on his arms that he got caught from the flaming claymore. The Vanser not giving Akeada time to do very much. His dagger is completely broken now. He just throws it to the side and putting both hands on the longsword. Huh? We're doing story time then. Anyways, he puts both hands on his longsword now. The other Vanser not giving him time to fully recover, charging forward, going in for a side sweep, and Akeada not doing full guards, he's just parrying at this point. So every time their swords meet, Akeada pushes it to the opposite side, just parrying his attacks as he steps back with each swing. So as he's sitting there parrying his overhead, parrying his swipes, but every time he goes for a full just swipe, he just jumps back, barely getting cut on his stomach each time. His Bio Crystal is getting stronger and stronger with each swipe he takes. The other Vanser is getting faster and faster. Losing his footing, losing his ground, starting to take hits. As they keep going. Meanwhile, the other Vanser's platoon is now about to enter the Great Tree, while Akeada and the other Vanser are fighting. Oh, that's my train of thought. Replied. I need to get to the second one up. Anyways, Akeada looks over at the, as they're fighting, Akeada looks over at the Great Tree, noticing that they're about to enter, losing focus in his current fight, that he ends up taking a big gash across his, taking the great sword straight into his shoulder, cutting into his chest. Cutting directly into him. Any other Vanser. Anyway, getting ahead of myself. As Akeada gets struck in the shoulder, cutting into his chest, he falls to one knee. The other Vanser puts his foot onto Akeada. Puts his foot on Akeada, pushing Akeada to the ground, pulling the claymore out. Akeada no longer really able to use his left arm. Raises his right arm up to swipe at his leg that's standing on him. The other Vanser lifts up his foot to miss, and Akeada jumps back a little bit. Or he jumps back, but rolls back to the side. Stands back up, holding his shoulder. The other Vanser pressing the attack. He now only having one arm to defend with. And it's not as effective because he's using two hands to match the strength of his blows. Ends up losing the grip of his sword, getting his sword knocked out of his hand. He is also distracted from the other people that are there about to enter the great tree. They're being cautious because they don't want to fall into any traps, but majority of them are now about to enter. He at this point now just dodging the swipes and not really having a weapon of his own. Is just dodging, getting cuts here and there while his left shoulder heals. His legs are getting cut up, his sides are getting cut up, all while his battle crystal is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, of course, so it's starting to get tougher and tougher for the other Vanser to cut through his arms. And he's starting to notice, because he's also starting to get a little bit tired for attacking. It is still on fire from some attacks, so you can't put out the fire. The fire is continuously burning, but also his healing is keeping it from spreading. So he just has cuts that are just on fire, like his left shoulder is just on fire, not really able to heal fully because of the fire. So it's burning him as fast as it's reverse burning. So it's just staying there and just burning. As they swipe, Akeada this time raises up his right arm. The sword cuts into his right arm halfway through. Akeada pushes it away, and it goes in for a punch and hits the other Vanser square in the face, making him fall back because it kind of caught him off guard. He used his bare right arm to catch the blade, pushing it back, and just punching him in the face as he was going forward. So Akeada used his momentum against him. He ends up falling on the ground. Akeada running to the great tree, while the other Vanser was staggered and stunned and surprised. The other Vanser came to rather quickly. Ends up shooting a fire, not shooting, but slashing a good fire wave at Akeada's back. So Akeada's whole back is now on fire. Akeada fell to the ground from the force of the fire slash. The other Vanser running forward, leaping into the air, and coming down with the claymore, but in a thrusting motion. Lands on Akeada, stabbing the sword into one of his legs. Ends up not twisting the sword, but pulling the sword to the side, cutting Akeada's leg off. So Akeada is now down a left arm and a right leg. All while Akeada was looking at the great tree, and they're entering, and he hears the battle screams of his tribe members being cut down. You heard my name? No, I didn't call your name. Hey, what's up? We're doing story time. While we have this in the background. With this right here. This is just a background thing. A little mini game we're going where we got the story time going. So Akeada lost his right leg and his left shoulder. Not really being able to heal because the fire is keeping him from healing. Akeada's struggling to go forward. The other Vanser's standing on his back, lifting his sword back up to impale Akeada again. What's up, X? How you doing? Yeah, turning to the side. Well, not turning. Akeada rolling to the side, getting the other foot off of him. The other Vanser goes in for the slash, but Akeada uses his right arm. Not his right arm, but his right hand. He catches it, the sword goes into his hand. But he closes his hand, so it's grinding against his biocrystal on his claws. He ends up stopping it. The other Vanser turns the sword and swiping to get his hands off. When he gets his hands off, he raises up to come down for a swipe. But Akeada uses his left leg to push the other Vanser off. So he kicks him back. And Akeada gets on his knees and grabs his right leg. Tries putting it back on like he did before. But it's not connecting, not healing because of the fire again. The other Vanser comes running back again for an attack, but he ends up using his right leg to smack the blade away. Smacks the blade away and turns it back around and smacks the Vanser in the face with his severed leg. The other Vanser steps back a little bit as Akeada stands there burning with one leg, one dead arm, holding his leg as a weapon now. As he no longer hears his fellow tribe members fighting in the Great Hall, he turns aside to see them coming out holding the dead bodies of his allies. He starts to go into a frenzy. Starts hopping on one leg to go to the other Vanser's. What is it called? The platoon. The other Vanser stops, impales dude in the back, lifting him up with the flaming sword popping out of his chest. Sliding down the sword, but he grabs the top of it so it stops him from sliding down. The other Vanser lifting Akeada up off the ground. And then slamming him into the ground and impaling the sword further down his back. Then whoa! As the other Vanser impaled Akeada to the ground, he walks to the other side holding the sword and slams his foot on Akeada's head, digging his face into the ground. And he keeps repeating to do this. Akeada is starting to fade from consciousness. And then he hears a voice as before, starting to get louder and louder, saying, "Devour, devour." But as he was hearing that voice, he starts to come to again, not wanting to succumb to it like he did before. But it was still getting louder and louder as he was trying to fight to stay conscious. Where is it gonna go from there? I don't remember. Anyways, as the voice in his head started getting louder and louder, the other Vanser continuing to stomp on his head, the back of his head, into the ground with the sword, the flaming sword impaled to his back, keeping him pinned to the ground. Akeada ends up snapping and releasing a static pulse, blowing the other Vanser back, and the fire that was on the sword got put out, and the fire on him got put out as well. The sword still is there, but it's just no longer on fire. To clarify what just happened, if you guys remember from the beginning of the story, he can send out pulses to see his location, and his black power, his black magic is the sun, so cosmic energy, plasma. He fused those two things together, not consciously, but fused those two things together and did a pretty much a pulse of lightning. There's some coordination with first Vanser he fought and ate, but that's just what you guys know. Anyways, back to the story. As he did that, he puts since the fire's out, he can now sun flares. Yeah, he has the power of the sun. He could do solar flares. Zavor coming in with that hose. Much appreciated, Zavor. Much appreciated. Lightning pulse. Yeah, lightning pulse. So he sends out a lightning pulse, knocking the other Vanser back. The platoon that was there got caught off guard by it as well. It was strong enough to disintegrate the lightning pulse was strong enough to disintegrate the long grass that was beside him, so now it was just a dead spot just like a dead spot. The closer it was to Akeada. The other Vanser got paralyzed a little bit because he was at point blank range. And now, since all the fire's out, he can now heal. His left arm starts healing rapidly. And Akeada is still kind of in a frenzy. Can't necessarily reach his right leg. Vines burst out for where... Since it's been so long, vines burst out from his wounds to pretty much mend them. And so he has vines bursting out from his right shoulder, and vines bursting out from where his leg used to be. The vines on his leg start seeking out pretty much his leg, his severed leg. They find it, they dig into it, and they start pulling it back to his severed leg. The vines on his shoulders starts connecting with his other side, so they're digging into his severed shoulder. Not really severed, it's just hanging there. Dig into that, and so it's pretty much stitching it back together as it reverse burns. If you guys were wondering what the vines are from, it's from the cursed crystal at the cave part, again in the first section of the story. Back to it. So as he mends himself, the other Vanser goes back up, watching in kind of horror of the monstrosity that he just saw. Just tentacles, not really tentacles, vines bursting forth from where he was cut, where he wasn't healing, mending himself. He starts pushing on the ground to get himself out. Stands up with the sword sticking out of his chest. Grabs the tip of the sword and pushes it back out through his chest. It falls to the ground, and he starts reverse burning on his chest. As Akeada was doing all this, he still has lightning like sparking off of him. The other Vanser stands up, igniting his hands into flames. Did you believe in what? What is this? extraterrestrials? I mean, I can't say no to that. I don't believe that we're the only thing in the universe. It's kind of just, I don't know. I don't think we're the alone in the universe. I don't know if they're close. I don't know anything like that. I don't know if they visit us. I don't know if they have visited us or not. Can't say that for certain. But I don't think we're alone in the universe. Out of this vast universe we call home, I do not think we're alone. Anyways, so Akeada is standing up with lightning sparking off of him still. Now he's pretty much lightning charged. The other Vanser ignites his hands now that he lost his weapon. I have an alien. As he just stands there, sparking with lightning, it starts getting more and more intense. Akeada gets into a pounce position. Gets into a pounce position, bending his legs, about to charge forward. The other Vanser getting ready, putting his hands in front of him. Akeada digs his feet into the ground and then bursts forth at a breakneck speed, and the other Vanser not expecting it, gets caught off guard. Punching him directly into the face with the force that he got off. Or kicked off from. Pretty much what happened there, if you guys didn't get it. The lightning was increasing his strength and speed. Akeada punching the other Vanser square in the face. It ends up with such force, it breaks his arm. And pretty much snaps his hard root and the biocrystal. As he smashes the other Vanser in the face, the other Vanser gets taken off his feet. He keeps pushing forward, ends up sending the other Vanser flying, bouncing on the ground. Continuing to run forward as his right arm healed from the first impact, jumps up and slams his knee into the other Vanser's chest, making him lose air. And we're just coughing out. But then he fully bursts himself in flames, catching Akeada on fire. Akeada jumps back. He jumps back, patting his legs. The other Vanser's standing up, trying to recover. As the other Vanser is standing up and recovering, Akeada is patting himself off. He then changes his target and just takes off again at breakneck speed, going straight for the other Vanser's platoon. The other Vanser notices this. Alright, take care and have a good one, original. No, the other Vanser's still alive. He tries to run, but still not recovered. He falls to his knees, coughing. Thank you for the cell. He ends up coughing up. He just coughs up some stuff. And Akeada is about to make contact with his platoon. The other Vanser raises his hands up, pulling his fire into his center of his hands, and shoots a fireball to where Akeada is going. Akeada stops in his tracks, turns around, and swipes at the fireball, catching his left hand on fire. But he doesn't stop in his tracks. After he swipes the fireball, catching his left arm on fire, he then continues to go for the other Vanser's platoon. The platoon turns around, pointing their swords at Akeada. Akita continuing to go forward with his flaming left arm, grabs one of them in the face. They stab Akeada in the chest, but it doesn't really phase them. They didn't pierce his biocrystal, but they got into his stomach, pretty much the flesh part that's not covered by the biocrystal. While his face burns, Akeada throws him into the other ones, and then swiping, putting his hand together pretty much like this, and swiping down on another one, ends up cutting into him as he falls to the ground, just screaming in pain now. He picks up the sword and starts cutting each and every one of them down, or cutting them down as they run. The other Vanser is standing up on his feet, now running over to where Akeada is as he cuts down his other platoon. As he cuts down the platoon, now enraging himself, he fully bursts into flames, just charging forward. And Akeada, now with the sword, turns to the other Vanser and dashes at him with breakneck speed again. The other Vanser not really be able to react. He slightly turns to try to evade the slash, but Akeada ends up slashing and cutting off his left arm. The other Vanser, staggered, falls to the side a bit, holding his left arm. Well, not really his left arm, like his shoulder, where his left arm used to be. He holds his left shoulder, just roaring in anger. Roaring in anger and pain. He turns to Akeada. He first looks at his platoon and all of the, they're not all dead. Some of them are writhing in pain because they didn't get killed immediately. They were just cut down, arms cut off, legs cut off, impaled with some swords, or just impaled, stabbed. Not all of them are dead. Some of them are tending to the other ones. And he looks back at Akeada. Akeada stands up, starts turning around. The other Vanser goes to grabs his arm and attaches it back to his shoulder, and the flames are searing it. Akeada charges forward again, not giving him too much time to fully heal. Ends up dropping his left arm back down as he jumps backwards. Akeada's swiping at his right arm. He had to let go of his left arm, so his right arm doesn't get cut. As he jumps back, one of his platoons throws him a sword. He catches it with his right arm, but enough time that he was looking away from Akeada, Akeada was already right on top of him, slashing down, ends up cutting his chest as he was turning back around. He falls back a bit, holding his chest now. But he has a sword now, so it's not all hopeless for the guy. He points it forward with his one arm. Akeada, still sparking with lightning, steps forward. The other guy steps back. And pretty much, they do that for a minute. Akeada is now next to his severed arm. He looks down, and he ends up picking up his left arm. All while he still has that voice in his head, just screaming at him at this point to devour. He ends up his mask starts cracking as he looks at the severed arm. The other Vanser, then charges forward as Akeada bent down to pick up the severed arm. He does an overhead slash on Akeada. Akeada then jumps back with his mask still slightly cracking more and more. Like in the mouth region, if you guys are wondering, it's like cracking apart. No, this is this is my actual story for the stream. I'm not reading off of anything. I'm actually zoning off, not using my eyes, just zoning while I say it. I go ahead and place units, everybody. Where was I? Oh, he jumps back. His face, his mask that he has is starting to crack. The other Vanser is not necessarily too sure. He's starting to be more cautious now, but he's fighting through his pain while he burns. He's not losing any blood or anything like that. His body is healed to an extent where he can keep going. He can reattach his arm, but he has to be able to get it first. Akeada is now holding his left arm. So now he's just debating on what to do and how to do, because if he turns his he's pretty much right here. Like, he's here, Akeada's here, and his group's right here. He's standing between Akeada and his group. Now that they're pretty much all, not all, but injured. Some are tending to the others, stuff like that. A lot of them were injured, some were killed, and some were maimed. Akeada just dead-eyeing the other Vanser, holding his severed arm with the right sword in front. The face mask still cracking more and more. Akeada drops the severed arm and charges forward. Charging forward, he puts the sword to the side as he dashes forward. So he's pretty much holding it like this to the left side with his right hand. With his left hand forward. Pretty much the way to explain it is he has it like this with his left hand like this. He's running forward. The other Vanser holds back his arm to go for a thrust. Akeada, using his left hand, lets the sword impale his right hand. He turns it to the side, twisting the blade in hand, and he grabs the other Vanser's hand and brings his right hand, like, so he catches it, turns his hand to the side, and then goes full power, full swing, cutting the other Vanser in the gut and then in half, and throwing his to the side with the sword impaled in his hand. The other Vanser is still alive, now writhing in pain. Akeada dropping the sword in his right hand, grabbing the sword in his left hand, pulling it out. His face mask now fully cracks, and he opens up his mouth and just yells. Well, not really yells, but roars, sending pulses out, mixed in with lightning every second. Just every roar he does, just constant pulsing as he roars. The other Vanser, writhing in pain, with his now cut in two. His legs fall to the ground. He turns to his platoon and just charges forward. Now cutting each individual one of them down. The other Vanser crawling to his legs. Notices that there's no longer screaming as he reaches his legs. He looks up, and Akeada is just covered in their blood. They're all dead. They're all ripped apart. Akeada not really using a sword. His claws are just dripping with their blood. He's slowly walking towards the other Vanser, now with black smoke coming out of his mouth and one of his eyes. He approaches the other Vanser, The Vanser was just too distracted, too mortified of what he just witnessed to reattach his legs. Akeada grabs his face, like pretty much just grabs him like this and lifts him up, puts his other hand together, and then just impales his chest. And then ripping out the other Vanser's core. Ending him there. Akeada looks at the core and just starts eating. Eats the core and then just starts eating the other Vanser. He's fully conscious this time, unlike the last time. He completely devours the other Vanser. Completely aware of what he's doing this time. And as he's done, he's still dripping with the blood of the others. The mask itself, because he's now closing his mouth, he closes his mouth and the biocrystal starts stitching itself back together, just starts healing back up. And it fully closes. And he just stands there for a bit. Looks at his hands, looks at the other bodies. And just continues to the mine shaft to get the others, telling him that everything is done. Nom! So Akeada goes into the cave. He goes deep into the cave, back to where they are storing their pods. And that's where the queen and everybody else is. Tells them it's safe to come out. And asks the queen what to do now. As they walk out of the cave, Queen first tells Akeada to get rid of the bodies of the fallen, bury the fallen, and dispose of the enemy. So Akeada goes back up there and just starts digging. Just digging graves for the fallen comrades that fought with him to defend the grove. And I will leave it there until next time.